welcome, listeners. You are tuned in to The Current. My name is Erin, and this is a show where we talk with creative types here in Maine for inspiration on embracing change, sparking curiosity, and shifting perspective. The name of the show, The Current, is all about being in the present moment, being in the progress of now, flowing and circulating. It's like a steady, smooth onwards flow. And it is my tremendous honor today to welcome Kevin Xiques, who is a Portland-based artist right here in Maine, whose work I came across looking at the Indigo Arts email that I received. The Indigo Arts Alliance is a Portland-based organization. And I was blown away by Kevin's work, and I was delighted when I reached out and he said yes to talking with us. So Kevin, welcome to The Current.
Oh, thank you very much. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Yes, we are so happy to learn more about you, your life, your output, your paintings. Just like I said, moved me immediately as first time I saw them. The color, the energy I felt like coming through the screen when I was on your website. I was like, oh, I gotta learn more about what's happening here. And then I learned that you just recently picked up a paintbrush. Can you talk to us about that? Like, what brought you to your current artistic expression?
Yeah, I think I've always, kind of reflecting now, I realize I think each part of my life has kind of brought me to this point. But initially, I guess just really quick, so I'm adopted originally, and so I was adopted by white parents in Vermont. So being like one of the only people of color that I knew, they got a lot of questions. Just where am I from? What is my purpose? Is there a legacy? Is there like this, that, the third? And without, I think, really, I never really, I think, focused on the tasks at hand that I had, right? Whether that be like school, friendships were good. I had a lot of great friendships, I think, but it was also like, I didn't have any Black friends, I think, until I was in college, until I got into college. I had a few people that I knew that I would see every now and again, but no one in my circle that I was around consistently. So I think that left my mind to wander, and then that caught up to me, I think, in my mid-20s. I was like, what am I doing? And I've spent my whole life asking so many questions, but not actually focusing on my path that is like in this world. I've just been so cerebral the whole time. So I think I started kind of with an artistic outlet, like how do you learn yourself? I think the arts is the perfect way to figure out who you are. So I started with photography, and that was amazing. It was a great place to start, a great place for me to really get comfortable, and kind of, because I think I've always thought there was like, there's a procedure to do everything, rather than, you can just kind of do whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. This is your own expression, So I think photography really allowed me to open up my mind more and not constrict myself to, I think, because I started taking pictures of like perfectly squared up, like compositions of like trees or whatever. And then I started loosely getting angles that I personally like that maybe not everyone else would like. And I think as I started to free up my mind more, photography got a little, it wasn't quite enough. I think I really wanted to be able to manipulate the scene and be able to to really make the picture mine, you know, and without like Adobe, I didn't want to have to edit everything. I wanted it to be its natural, organic form, you know. So I eventually, that led me to drawing. And so photography was about a year. And then I started drawing, and that was about 5 or 6 months or so. But I was drawing religiously, just literally probably at least 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day. And at this point, I mean, I'm just kind of working a day job and not just trying to make an income for myself, feed myself, pay rent, do all that. And slowly drawing started to kind of go by the wayside, and the interest started to go away. And my girlfriend, who's an artist herself, she's always been trying to get paints in my hand. And my girlfriend, Helen. And she, pretty much since I started photography, she's like, oh, I think you really like painting. And I was like, it's too messy. It's too this. It's too bad. I was just being lazy about it. You know, I was like, I never went to school. I never liked it in school. I never blah, 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 you know. And I think once the drawing kind of came to an end, I was like, you know, I can't really think of what the next thing would be, but I'll try it, you know. So the holiday season came around, and she bought me a set of brushes and paints for Christmas, and I started drawing very like figurative stuff, and I enjoyed it, but it was very tight, and like, again, thinking kind of like procedurally, like, oh, there's a way you're supposed to do this, so I'm trying to figure that out. And I think she saw that, and one night she was just like, hey, you look kind of tight. Like, you should loosen up a little bit. She's like, you're not selling these, you're not showing these, there's no one, these are just for you. She was like, I'll see them when I pass by, just like let loose, do your thing, you know. And so I was like, yeah, no, she's right, and just started making really broad brush strokes and really started to enter that abstract realm. And like, even with the first painting, I could tell, like the first abstract painting, I could tell, I was like, oh yeah, this is cool. And then I bought my first big canvas, or bigger canvas. It was like 2 feet by 3 feet. And I completed that one, and that turned out really well. Like, she walked into the room too and was like, oh my goodness. And the rest was history, I think. So that was like, I think a month into painting. After the first month, I started doing the abstract thing. So I think month 2, I was like, oh yeah, this is it. I'm not leaving this. This is secure.
It's an amazing story. Thank you for going into that, like the genesis of your, it feels like you really connect it to your existence. Like, you know, it's like finding meaning, and like as a child looking for like, who am I in this world where I don't see myself and I can't relate to people. And it's like people asking me like, what's your story? You know. And then from there, feeling like living in this world where other people are defining, it sounds like, the ways to do things. And it's like this gradual process. What I heard was this like gradual process of you like going deeper almost to feel what is truly yours.
That's spot on. Yeah.
I want to give those who are watching a chance to see some of your work. If we shift over to your website, maybe you can talk a little bit about, like, I mean, just landing here, this first homepage painting that you have is just so much energy and movement. And then if we go to the work, you know, recent work series that we can click on, I'm just going to slowly be scrolling down here. And yeah, just, I love the variety of colors and just the energy. I feel like I don't have words to say exactly what it attracts me to them. I'm very drawn to these ones where you have like almost something that's obscuring the under color. Can you talk a little bit about these?
You know, it's always interesting to talk about them because I like to think of painting as like, so I grew up um, skateboarding, and I think that was the very first thing that I actually, because I was definitely a follower for sure in my childhood and just kind of tried to follow the common thing that all my friends were doing. And skateboarding was the one thing that I chose very early on. I think I was like 8 years old and that I just stuck with. But I don't think I really had any friends who skated at that time. And so skateboarding is really just, you know, you can grab your board and you literally step out the door and you go. And there's no, most would argue, I know the skating community would, some would argue, but I think it's pretty accepted that you can do whatever you want on a skateboard. If you are on a skateboarding, you're a skateboarder, you know? And that's how I like to look at the painting. Like, there's no real preparation involved. Like I purposely did this so I didn't have to set out a blueprint. I didn't have to prepare anything prior to making the paintings in order for them to turn out the way I wanted to turn out. Really, the big thing was like, I want to see how they turn out. You know, I don't know how they're going to turn out at the end of the day. So like the color palettes are totally just made in the moment. I only use like the primary colors and then white and then sometimes like a burnt sienna. And it's really letting out whatever I'm feeling that day. And the paintings go by fairly quickly. I mean, I spend a lot of time in like a single day, you know, I'll paint for, sometimes I'll paint for like 8 hours a day. Like on average, it'll be like, if I'm painting, it'll be probably around 5 to 6 hours. So they'll last from anywhere from like, sometimes I'll finish it in like that 8 hour period in a day, and sometimes they'll last for like a week, sometimes two. And I think in those specific paintings that you went to initially,
Yeah.
because you kind of see a mix of like the ones from the top. And
Yeah.
then, like you said, I kind of filled in a little bit more. And I can definitely say those paintings that you initially went to were over a longer period of time that it took me to paint these guys over the ones up top. So you kind of see a mixture of what is up top, which were finished in probably like 2 days, versus like these two guys were like finished over a period of like probably a week or so. So you just see, I think it's just, you see more of me coming out, or more of me trying to maybe even cover and disguise something, or realizing, wait, like maybe I don't feel this way anymore. So I'm cutting this out where I felt like that last Tuesday, this Tuesday, you know, I kind of want to cover that or cover a piece of it, you know? So it's hard to really tell you what was going on in the middle of it, because it's kind of like a blackout kind of moment. But I guess that's the best way I can describe what's kind of going on there.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. What's really, sure. I'm very curious about how big a role you're saying emotions and your emotional state play in what you get on the canvas, you know, and then how in creating the painting. And then later you might come back and not feel that way. And it's like this really interesting, for me, I'm very intrigued by that, like language of emotions that you're putting into visual language.
Yeah. And that's all I can really say. And it's funny because I notice if I'm really, really happy and excited and just kind of on like above average level temperament, I guess, you'll get something like this first one here, the blue one, the patient space. That one was done in that was like 6 hours. And that was just pure joy. A lot of my paintings prior to that had no like negative space around it. It was just marks everywhere, which you see like when you scroll, like I think about halfway down, you'll see all majority of those paintings below are just there's marks everywhere, no negative space. And I knew prior to making this painting that I did want to start adding some negative space. But I had some paintings that I was kind of, in my eyes, making better, but they were the paintings that had the marks all over them. And I had like 3 paintings I knew I wanted to work on before I started using the negative space.
Yeah.
And so I think that took me about like almost like 2 months to finish like those 3 paintings and the way I wanted to do them. And there was definitely a lot of stress, a lot of just definitely a lot of kind of a negative emotion, I think, going on, and really almost forcing things, and definitely asking a lot of questions, doing a lot of like experimentation. But I think it was especially hard for me because I knew through that 2-month period that I did want to get to the negative space. So I think once I finally got there, it was just, I just blew up with just positive energy, and it just was like, you know, and and you kind of get something like this. And I think that one is definitely, I don't think I have a favorite, but that's definitely one of them for sure. But it's funny because I wouldn't know how to paint that again, you know. It was what I was feeling in that moment came out. And like those first 4, I could say, had like a similar energy to them all, where then I'll also paint in the exact opposite, I think, maybe with not feeling so great and needing to let, I guess, emotion that's been getting me down, I need to let that out. And that kind of works in the same way. It's only when I think I'm feeling kind of average and it's like, oh, I'm feeling pretty good, you know, it's like, and then I find myself, I think that's when things start taking me a longer period of time. But because there's not a lot of emotion going either way, it's more so kind of contained. And I find that to be a little bit more difficult for sure. And it's harder to find that kind of point of surrender with the work, that where you allow yourself to just kind of black out and go. I'm more consciously trying to get through the painting, which actually would be those 2 paintings that we were looking at a few minutes ago. I would say, yeah, they used to get like, that's me. I definitely, I know for sure, no, both of them definitely were kind of, I had gotten through a few paintings and with the aesthetic I saw starting to change, and I was really excited about that. But you know, those emotions only last at the height that they're at for so long. And then, you know, the more you get them, the less you kind of feel. It's like that, like economics, like diminishing marginal utility, you know, the more it happens, like the less you feel. So those were definitely like harder to work out. And I was like, well, how do I make this work? How do I put this together? So there's definitely more of a conscious effort with those, which is definitely harder for me.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I want to like, there are a couple of different directions I want to move in from everything you're saying. I mean, I'm hearing that painting for you is this, it feeds something and it helps you process, you know, like your experience and your emotions. And I'm wondering what else, or what you would say about that topic in general of like nourishment, you know, like how do you nourish yourself? It can be as a painter, it can be as a man, it can be as a, you know, a Black man living in Maine, like whatever, however you want to answer that question, like how do you find nourishment for yourself?
Right now it's definitely through painting, and I think just kind of all things painting, whether it's painting itself, watching different documentaries about painting, painters, reading about painting, I've definitely just completely submerged myself into just painting everything. So my life consists of painting, you know, my close friends, family, my girlfriend, and painting right now. So right now it's definitely, yeah, largely that. But I really just love being in the world, you know, and really just that excites me, and knowing that anything is possible. And I think this exploration and journey of painting so far has really shown me that, like, you know, anything is possible in the world if you show up consistently, and you know, you give it an honest effort, you can really make anything happen. And I think waking up knowing that is the most exciting thing every single day. And it's really, because I think we're all told that throughout, you know, a lot of our lives, like, oh, you put the work in, you know, you can make anything happen. But it's hard to do until you actually do it yourself, or you see examples of people. But then I think we love to make the excuse of like, well, yeah, but like, you know, well, Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan, you know, like, yeah, but Michael Jordan was just any dude before he was Michael Jordan the way we know him. He had the mindset, you know, he had to bring himself to that. And we all have that capability of doing that. And I think, yeah, just knowing that, I guess, really, I mean, it's cliche, but anything you put your mind to, you can make happen, I think is the most exciting thing. Keeps me getting up in the morning. And, you know,
yeah, it really sounds like discovering and diving into painting has like shifted that perspective for you and really like empowered you in that way. And there's probably a lot of people out there who are like looking for their painting, you know, for their like thing that, you know, they you know, there may be adrift or something. But what I heard you say is that your girlfriend Helen was really instrumental in like bringing you to this. And that brings me to the topic of community, you know, like the people who are there for us, who support us. And like, I'm so curious how you like define your community, how you you know, create or cultivate community. What would you say to that?
I think community is like two or more people, you know, that gather around a common belief. And I think my community is very, right now, at least the art community, I think it's filled with a lot of people that I'm getting to know better. I don't really see anyone consistently. But nonetheless, we all gather around, you know, the thing that is art. And I think it's really cool to see how quickly you do vibe with people who have the same interests, you know, especially something like art, because it's like, okay, we all gather around art, but what is art? It's kind of like almost like the acceptance of whatever comes out, almost, in a way, you know, because art can be anything, you know, really. We all participate in art one way or another. But
totally.
Yeah.
I love that. Like that it's like two or more people gathered around a common interest, and like that art as that magnet, you know, is so wide open to like bringing people so with such vastly different backgrounds and even values and beliefs, like, you know, coming together. And I think art is this great like exchanger, like, of ideas and energy, and like being moved by something that someone else, like, that came from someone else's like soul, you know. It's like,
exactly,
like bypasses all this bullshit.
100%, definitely.
So I'm also like, I know that our time is running short, but I'm really curious. One of the themes of this show, The Current, is talking about life change and like adapting to life change and being adaptable and going with the flow of things. And, you know, since the pandemic, I think everyone's like kind of had this new experience of that, doing just that, you know?
Definitely.
And
Yeah.
and you've talked a little bit about, like, in your background, how you had these moments of change. I wonder if there's an example from your life that either you've touched on and can say a little more about, or something you haven't shared yet. Just a moment of life change for you that that you navigated, and like what you know, what helped you through that moment of change. Like, looking back, you know, what are you taking away from that? You know, I think so many people may currently find themselves in that place of transition, and I think hearing how others navigate that, like with some distance, can be helpful. So for our listeners, do you have anything you could share to that end?
Yeah, I think it was definitely the transition from kind of, so initially, well, when I moved to Maine in fall of 2020, I started working at a warehouse. And after a year at the warehouse, you know, it was good, all good and well. You know, there's great people there. But I just knew for me, that was not what I wanted to do. And I think on most of my job experiences that I've had, I realized like I can't really work for someone else. And not because I'm like, I really want to make, I mean, I do want to make decisions for myself, but my brain is so, works so haphazardly. It's just, I'm like, well, I'm dyslexic and ADHD, and whether or not those even come into play, I'm just this creative thinker, and I don't think I necessarily deliver in like your everyday jobs. I don't deliver as quickly as people want. I think exactly the way people want. And it was never like an issue. It was more of an issue I had. I don't think it was ever an issue for anyone else. No one ever talked to me about it. But it stressed me out. And I knew I need to do, if I'm going to be happy in this life, I need to figure out how to do this on my own, by myself. And luckily, simultaneously, I think that I was painting at the same time. And I was, remember it still being at the warehouse. And it was like that first, I talked about having like doing like the first bigger abstract painting. And sorry, wasn't that one. It was like a couple paintings after that. I submitted to my first like juried show, and there was like, I think hundreds of applicants. And so I was thinking like, okay, well, you know, like it's, if I don't get it, I don't get it. I've been doing this for a while. It's not gonna get me down, you know. And I got that, I got accepted. And I think that changed everything for me. And I don't even think after that, it was like, it didn't matter how many rejections I got after that, or how many, whatever. It was that first kind of like the world just sending me this sign of like, yo, you can do this,
Yeah.
you know? And
Yeah.
I just really, at that point, I realized like, worst comes to worst, like I will just, I'll go back to the warehouse, you know? So I worked in the warehouse for another several months after that. But then left, and then I was like, you know, I want to take a shot on myself, and worst comes to worst, I'll go back to the warehouse. And it was really the convincing myself that it was possible, and that I was more than capable of doing it, and not leaving there to be any sort of question. And that's a complete mental thing, you know. It's a two-way thing where you do have to, like, you have to accept it mentally first, that yeah, I can 100% do this. There's no reason why I wouldn't be able to do this. And then there's that second part of actually doing, putting it out into the world. You know, you have to actually act on it and physically go out there and do it. And if you compare those two things together, I think I've just been receiving so many signs, whether it's selling my paintings, getting into shows, and like I've been, you know, not working at that warehouse since Thanksgiving, and I'm still here at this point, surviving, you know, and it's working. But there's obviously a lot of sacrifice involved with that. But I think with the way everything was working out, it was a pretty easy transition for me in my life to make. But it was really just do your due diligence, show up. But I think most importantly, you got to believe like it's something that is 100% within your reach. And I think our mind is the most powerful thing that we have. And I think you just have to always know that whatever it is, I used to say this a lot more, but I believe like a human being could fly if they wanted to. I think we've only never seen it because there hasn't been someone in the world yet who just dedicated their life to learning how to fly. But if there was someone, we would 100% see that. There's no doubt in my mind. And there's so many things in the world where, oh, this isn't possible, you know, like 100 years ago. And then, you know, you fast forward and all those things that people said weren't possible are happening today. So all these different beliefs of, oh, there's limits to this, there's limits to that, get proven wrong every single day. And so why couldn't that be the same for your own life, you know? And I think I've really adopted that mindset of like, why not me? And I think I really hope everyone kind of comes to that conclusion, because it's like the first thing I would hear when I would say like, a human being could fly, it'd be like, no, that's impossible, scientifically, blah, 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 every reason why it's not possible. But I was like, well, you can't prove me wrong, because like there's still time. We're still living our lives. There's still time to prove this. So it's kind of like you can be agnostic about it, but it's not like you can't tell me it's impossible at all, you know? So that hope, and it's huge, of knowing that anything is possible is so key. So it's just that, you know, you can go out there and conquer whatever you want to conquer. So shift to mindset. That's really all it is.
Yeah.
And it's a lot more than, it takes a lot more than, it's not easy at all. But if you can successfully shift your mindset to the point where you could be like, you know what, if I really want to do it, I can, you're golden.
Yeah. I love that, Kevin Xiques. And I think that is such a powerful reminder to us all. It's like you said, it's like maybe we were born with this awareness of possibility, but then it gets like trampled on maybe like through our lives until it's like, so it's 100%. Like we need to be reminded of the miracles, like the miracle and the mystery of just being alive. And I love how your life trajectory thus far is this like beautiful, like coming forth of what you just said, is like coming up out of the ground, like, you know, like being this expression of, you know, what's true to you, and then seeing it, the aliveness in your paintings just moves me, and I'm sure it moves, you know, the viewers and the listeners who are spending this time with you today with the show. I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to be with us, and for sharing your, you know, your experience and your insights and a little bit about your process. And I'm definitely going to have links to your website so people can, you know, look at your work, buy your work, know when your next shows are, and follow you, you know, on social media, and just stay close to what's happening with Kevin Xiques in the future, in the current of your life and creative flow. So thank you again.
Of course.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. This has been really fun, really quick. Oh, it felt like it's only been like 15 minutes.
Awesome.
So thank you so much.
You're so welcome, and we'll see you next time on The Current. Thanks for tuning in.